Lynette Fay on BBC Radio Ulster and BBC Sounds.
You're listening to Wednesday's show. At the moment, it's approaching 16 minutes to 4. And finally on the show today, a Dungannon woman has created a protective piece of headgear which she says could become a game changer in sport because it protects the brain against concussive and subconcussive impacts. Judith McMinn, good afternoon to you. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Hello, Lynette, and thanks so much for the opportunity to join.
So your design is called the Halo, and it's designed to protect the brain. So why is this important? I suppose we need to talk about concussion first of all, and how that happens and why it's so dangerous to the brain.
Yes, so we've developed a sports headband called Rezon Halos, and reason because there's a very good reason to protect the brain. The brain determines your mood, your personality, your thinking, your processing. Your brain makes you, and everything about you. And the brain is very vulnerable. It's very susceptible to impacts, and it's easily damaged. And it's easily damaged because of concussions, which are single hits to the head that cause a brain injury. So a concussion is a brain injury with symptoms: feeling sick, dizziness, dazed, blurriness in the eyes. And subconcussions are smaller hits. They're about a quarter of the force that don't have symptoms. They go unnoticed, and collectively they accumulate to cause brain damage. And it's brain injury that then manifests itself later in life. And you've probably seen and heard about the number of former contact sport players who have developed a condition called CTE, which is an early onset dementia that presents much earlier than dementia would in the normal population.
So when you were younger, you played hockey. So you've been playing contact sport from a very early age. What you would have asked the question, why do we protect our shins and our teeth but not our brain? I just wonder what the responses would have been to that question.
That's a question I asked back in Dungannon playing sport at school, and I've asked a lot of people that since in the 25 plus years since I stopped playing hockey, and people didn't have an answer, or if they did, they said things like, well, we don't tackle with our brain, which just underlines probably how little we know about the brain and how much we take it for granted. But there is no answer, and this is really what started me on this journey, is that there was no product in the market. There were plenty of products that were head protection, but the head and the brain are two different things. And those products were more around either hard-shelled helmets, which protect you against what's called linear hits, which are straight-line impacts that stop you splitting your skull, or would cause you to split your skull, and therefore the helmets prevent that. But they do nothing to protect the brain, which is why people often have brain injury even after head impacts with a helmet on. And then, sort of soft padded things that really are just stopping cuts and abrasions. And it's that distinction between head protection and brain protection. And we focused on the brain protection to give you something that protects your brain.
So do you have a medical background or an engineering background, Judith? And what has come? Why are you so passionate about this headgear and I suppose producing it after all these years?
Well, I don't have either of those backgrounds, but I brought together an expert team across the globe that have the insight. So I work with the world's leading experts when it comes to neuroimaging, and that's a clinic based out of Harley Street in London. I also have experts in manufacturing, in Europe, experts as well in academia, and collectively we have worked to develop something that has passed CE safety marking. It has been on thousands of heads in user testing. So we've got, truthfully, the world's most advanced solution to reducing rotational brain injury. And it's rotational brain injury that really is the issue here. It's when the brain rotates inside the skull, brain cells are damaged, brain vessels are torn, and that's what then causes brain injury in players of all ages and all sports.
So tell me how it works.
It's a headband. It's 70 grams, so it's very light. It's 9.5 mil thick, and it's got 9 layers inside it. And those layers move over each other to reduce impact, to reduce linear and rotational forces. And importantly, it reduces the rotational forces by 60+%, therefore reducing your risk of the one-hit concussion and these smaller, unnoticeable subconcussions. And We've been testing that in the labs, and more importantly, we've been testing it on the pitches, and we've been testing it using leading neuroimaging insights as well, to get an evidence base that we're happy with, and then working on the more ordinary things like comfort and fit and grip and cooling, and not everyone has the same size of head, so we've been working on sizing and fit, and people who have greasy skin and people who have less hair, and all of those things, as you would expect, we've had to deal with as well. And how do you keep it on the scrum in rugby? How does it work if you hit a ball in football? All of that, which have meant we've had a lot of design features and a lot of design requirements to consider, but that's where an expert team comes in. They can take a different point of view, and collectively we get the best result.
And when you say all ages as well, is this something that children, can wear? And have you designed it specifically for children? Does that involve a specific design?
The design is the same, but it comes in 7 different sizes. And this is really quite important for children. And I'm sure there are probably people listening that are maybe sitting in the car or coming home from school or in the car park at school. Between the ages of 8 and 12 is peak development of the brain. So in other words, between the ages of 8 and 12 determines the rest of your life. And studies show that if you're taking head impacts under the age of 12, you go up to be cognitively disadvantaged in school, about 25% less performing. And that in brain injury can happen over just one season of impact in sport. So for children, it is really quite important to consider protecting the brain, and we've developed our product, as I say, in different sizes. So I think our youngest player wearing it at the moment is 4, and we've players right up into their 70s and 80s who still participate in sport wearing it. And also I would say about women, brain injury is much more serious in women. A concussion is 3 times more serious in a woman than it is in a man, for reasons around hormones. The brain cells in women are longer and thinner, so they shear more easily. Menstrual cycles, neck strength, training regimes, and 80.1% of data around concussion is around men. So women have been really quite excluded in a lot of the insights we know about concussion, but we know it's a much bigger issue for women and girls. So that's also another consideration group that should be thinking about protecting the brain in sport.
Okay, so there's an awful lot in that, and I suppose the other part of the argument is taking concussion seriously, and I think it's beginning to become a big issue, and people realising just how serious it is. Great to talk to you today, Judith. I just wonder, is the next stop for this product is Dragon's Den? Are we going to see you promoting it in Dragon's Den?
Not in the short term. We're selling across 8 geographies. We're selling into 6 sports. We want to give every player the choice. So it doesn't matter what level you play at, doesn't matter your game. If there's a risk of head impact and therefore brain injury, we think our product's definitely something you should look at. And but we're really just focusing, trying to get it out there into schools, into clubs, and maybe Dragon's Den at some point. But at the moment, they're not ready to evaluate it just yet.
There we go. And all started in Dungannon. Judith, great to talk to you.
All started in Dungannon. Lynette, thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Lovely to speak to you.
All the best.
Too.
Bye-bye.
That's Judith McMinn, the founder of RezonWear.com, talking to me this afternoon, 8 minutes to 4 o'clock.